Hello and welcome to our podcast, Phonology Talk, where we'll explore some key concepts in English phonology. Our panel consists of Azul Carmona, Paola Cravioto, Perla Garcia, and Lourdes Avila. Today we'll talk about common phonological processes, phonological opposition, and minimal pairs. Three essential topics for understanding how the sounds of English work. Let's start with our first topic, common phonological processes.
Let's start defining phonology, which is a term we will be using a lot on the podcast. We can define it as the branch of linguistics of how sounds function in relation to each other in their languages, and what we say is determined by certain phonological rules that come out from certain phonological processes.
It is also important to say it is a study of sound system in the language itself. Phonological processes are predictable patterns of sound changes that young children and sometimes second language learners use when their speech system is still developing. They make speech simpler to produce kind of like shortcuts the brain takes when it hasn't mastered all the rules yet.
Yes, and like my classmate said, we not only produce words, we actually produce certain sequence of morphemes, and we know that in each morpheme is combined or produced by sequence of sounds. So each morpheme, when it is combined with two other morphemes, it undergoes a certain change. It means one morpheme can juxtapose with another morpheme because of different sounds that exist in both.
Yes, exactly. And human speech is also fundamental concern to phonologists and linguistics in general, as language is our knowledge of phonology. For knowledge of the sound system and how sounds are brought together in speech. It is important to highlight the main and most common phonological processes, so what are the most fundamental phonological processes. We haven't listed them and we will explain it on today's episode, so stay tuned. They are normally divided into two.
We need to know about these important concepts. So the first one is known as word-level phonological processes. These happen within a single word. They affect how individual sounds are produced inside that word. They're the ones typically seen in child speech development or phonological disorders, and even sometimes in second language pronunciation. Examples: final consonant deletion, cats, ka, cluster reduction, spoon, poon. Here the process doesn't depend on what comes before or after the word. It's internal.
Phrase level or across words phonological processes. These occur across word boundaries when sounds interact between different words in connected speech. This is sometimes called connected speech processes or sound phenomena, a fancy linguistic term, especially in phonetics and phonology. These processes are about how words flow together naturally in speech, not how a single word is structured.
Assimilation process describes changes in which a sound becomes similar to or is influenced by a neighboring sound of an utterance. Assimilation may occur between two adjacent sounds, contiguous or at a distance, not contiguous. The direction of assimilation may be forward progressive or backwards regressive. For example, pen, ten, being, been, can, came.
Now, syllable structure describes those sound changes that affect the structure of the syllable, and it refers to the internal organization of syllable in spoken language, outlining how sounds combine to form syllables. For example, let's explore the syllable structure in the word cat. Isn't said in k, nucleus in a, and coda in t.
Neutralization is a process whereby phonological distinctions are reduced in a particular environment. Ephanthasis insertion. Ephanthasis is the insertion of an extra sound into a word. Adjective, ephenthetic, verb, ephantasize, also known as intrusion or anaptysis. According to some linguistics, vowel emphasis is often motivated by the need to make consonant contrast more distinctive. Athlete for athlete.
Delation is a process where a sound or syllable is omitted from a word to simplify pronunciation, often occurring in rapid speed or in children learning to talk. Examples include dropping the T sound in handbag to say handbag or saying ka for cat. This process is also called delation and can be a normal part of language development but might require intervention if it persists in older children or adults.
Now, moving on to phonological opposition. Anna, what's that all about?
Phonological opposition refers to how sound contrasts to create meaning difference in a language. Two sounds are phonemically opposed if swapping one for the other changes the meaning of a word. Take B and B in English. Fat versus vat. That's a clear phonological opposition between a voiceless and a voiced bilabial stop. And how about fan versus bang? That's a change in the initial consonant F versus V.
Exactly, and that's where the concept of minimal pairs comes in. A minimal pair is a pair of words that differ by only one phoneme and have different meanings, like sheep and sheep. The only difference is the vowel sounds e and e, or bit and bit. Again, a short vowel versus a long one. Minimal pairs also help with production, learning to shape the mouth and tongue correctly for each sound. These pairs help linguists identify which sound contrasts are meaningful in a language and long one.
And they are so fun. You can turn them into games, tongue twisters, or listening challenges. So next time you're practicing pronunciation, try using minimal pairs. They're simple, effective, and surprisingly powerful.
Before we wrap up, let's reflect a bit. Why do you think studying these phonological processes and opposition matters?
For me, it's about understanding language development. Knowing typical phonological processes helps speech therapists spot when a child's pronunciation is within normal range or when intervention may be needed.
And from broader perspective, phonological oppositions reveal how languages evolve and differ. What's contrastive in one language might not be in another, like how English distinguishes R and I, but in Japanese they're often allophonic, not phonetically distinct.
So, in a way, phonology isn't just about sounds, it's about how humans organize and perceive them.
Exactly, it's a window into the human mind. That's all for today's episode of Phonology Talk. Thanks to Anna, Azul, and Lulu for joining me. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe for more insights into the fascinating world of linguistics. Until next time, keep listening and keep speaking.